The story of Jesus and Peter fishing. As dawn brushed its gentle fingers across the Sea of Galilee, the water lay smooth as polished glass, reflecting the fading stars above. The air held that special stillness that comes in the moments before sunrise, when night slowly releases its hold on the world. Along the shore, fishing boats rocked softly in the shallow waters, their wooden hulls creaking quietly against their moorings. Peter stood at the water's edge, his weathered hands working methodically to repair his nets. The familiar motions brought comfort after a long night of fruitless fishing. The coarse rope moved through his fingers as he found and mended tiers, each knot a reminder of countless days spent on these waters. The smell of fish and salt water mingled with the earthy scent of the wooden boat. Around him, other fishermen were also preparing to head home after their nighttime labors. Their quiet voices carried across the water, mixing with the gentle lapping of waves against the shore and the first calls of morning birds. Their faces showed the weariness of a night spent casting nets into dark waters, only to pull them back empty. The sky continued to lighten, painting the clouds in soft shades of pink and gold. The mountains surrounding the lake emerged from shadow like ancient guardians awakening. It was in this peaceful morning light that Jesus approached the shore, his footsteps quiet on the damp sand. The sound of gathering crowds followed him, their soft murmuring growing as more people arrived to hear his teaching. As the morning grew brighter, more people gathered along the shoreline, drawing closer to hear Jesus' words. The crowd pressed forward gently, like waves approaching the shore, each person eager to catch every word. Peter watched as Jesus looked around, his gaze taking in the growing assembly and the boats resting at the water's edge. Jesus approached Peter's boat with the natural grace of one completely at peace. His presence seemed to bring a deeper calm to the morning air, like the stillness that settles over water in the absence of wind. He asked Peter if he might use his boat as a place to teach, his voice carrying the warmth of friendship. Peter welcomed him aboard, his fisherman's hands steady as he helped Jesus step into the gently rocking boat. Together they pushed off a little from the shore, the wooden hull sliding smoothly through the clear water. The sound of water lapping against the sides of the boat created a soothing rhythm beneath Jesus' words as he began to teach. From this floating pulpit, Jesus' voice carried clearly across the water to the gathered crowd. Peter sat quietly, his hands resting on the familiar wooden planks of his boat, as he listened to the teaching. The morning sun continued its gentle ascent, casting diamonds of light across the surface of the lake, while a soft breeze carried the scent of water and wild flowers. When Jesus finished speaking, the sun had climbed higher in the sky, warming the air and casting shorter shadows along the shore. Instead of concluding their time together, Jesus turned to Peter with an unexpected suggestion, his voice gentle but firm. He asked Peter to row out into the deeper water and let down his nets. Peter felt the weight of his long, unsuccessful night of fishing in his tired muscles. His experience as a fisherman told him that fish were rarely caught in the deep waters during daylight hours. Yet there was something in Jesus' calm certainty that touched a deeper place in Peter's heart, like a whisper of possibility in the quiet morning. Moving with the practiced motions of a lifetime on the water, Peter began to row deeper into the lake. Each stroke of the oars created gentle ripples that spread out across the surface like flowing silk. The shoreline receded slowly, the crowd becoming smaller as the boat moved into deeper waters. The only sounds were the rhythmic dip of the oars and the quiet conversation of water against wood. The morning light played across the surface of the lake, creating patterns that shifted and changed with each small movement. Above them, seabirds wheeled lazily in the warming air, their wings catching the sunlight as they glided overhead. The familiar weight of the nets rested in the bottom of the boat, still damp from the night's unsuccessful fishing. Despite his weariness, Peter found himself responding to the peaceful confidence in Jesus' presence. His arms, tired from a night of casting and pulling empty nets, found renewed strength as he rowed. The deeper waters held a different quality of silence, a stillness that seemed to invite trust and possibility. When they reached the spot Jesus indicated, the water had turned from clear green to deep blue, indicating the greater depths below. Peter lifted the nets, their weight familiar in his hands. The motion of casting them out was one he had performed countless times. Yet this time felt different, as if the very air held its breath in anticipation. The net spread out across the water like a floating tapestry, sinking slowly into the depths. Peter watched them disappear beneath the surface, remembering all the times he had performed this same action throughout the night. The sun now stood higher in the sky, warming his back as he waited, the boat rocking gently beneath his feet. In the gentle morning stillness, Peter began to feel an unusual tension in the nets. At first, it was subtle, like the first stirring of wind before a breeze. Then the resistance grew stronger, the ropes drawing taut with a weight he had rarely experienced. The surface of the water began to bubble and swirl with movement from below, like a living thing awakening. As Peter began to pull on the nets, he quickly realized this was beyond his strength alone. The nets strained with their burden, heavy with more fish than he had ever seen caught in a single cast. The wood of the boat creaked softly as it tilted toward the weight of the catch. Looking across the water, Peter caught sight of his partner's boat and lifted his arm in a gentle signal for help. James and John responded quickly, their boat cutting a smooth path through the calm waters as they approached. The sound of their oars dipping into the water joined the peaceful morning chorus of gentle waves and calling birds. As they drew near, they could see the amazing sight of nets straining with fish, the water alive with silver scales catching the sunlight. Together, the fishermen worked in practiced harmony to draw in the nets. Their movements were careful and measured, guided by years of experience on these waters. The boats rocked gently as they worked, while schools of fish continued to swirl beneath them, scales flashing like scattered coins in the clear water. The nets, when they finally brought them up, were filled to breaking with fish. Both boats began to sit lower in the water as they carefully transferred their catch, the wooden planks groaning softly under the unexpected blessing. The morning light caught the scales of countless fish, creating a shimmering display that seemed to mirror the wonder of the moment. In the midst of this overwhelming abundance, Peter found himself slowly sinking to his knees on the deck of his boat. The wooden planks were cool and damp beneath him, still wet from the morning's catch. All his years of fishing experience, all his knowledge of these waters, seemed to fade before the magnitude of what he had just witnessed. The morning sun continued its gentle ascent, casting long rays across the water as Peter looked up at Jesus. His voice, when he found it, was soft with awe and trembling with recognition. He spoke of his unworthiness, his words carried away by the gentle breeze. The distance between who he was, a simple fisherman, and what he now recognized in Jesus seemed as vast as the depths beneath their boats. Jesus' response flowed as smoothly as the water around them, his voice carrying the warmth of compassion and understanding. He spoke of a new kind of fishing, a different purpose that would draw people instead of fish. His words settled over Peter like a gentle mantle, bringing both comfort and calling. The boats rocked softly in the morning light as understanding began to dawn in Peter's heart. Around them, the lake continued its peaceful motion, waves lapping quietly against the wooden hulls. The fresh scent of water mingled with the earthy smell of their unprecedented catch, creating a moment that would remain forever etched in Peter's memory. As they turned their heavily laden boats toward shore, the morning had deepened into full day. The light danced across the water, creating pathways of gold that seemed to beckon them forward. Peter's hands, still bearing traces of scales and salt water, gripped the familiar oar with new purpose. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Peter and his companions guided their boats back to shore, each gentle wave carrying them toward a new chapter in their lives. The abundant catch of fish would soon be forgotten in light of the greater catch of living souls that lay ahead. Yet this peaceful morning on the Sea of Galilee would remain forever in their hearts, a quiet reminder of how divine power meets human trust. The story settles in our minds like evening settling over calm waters. We too might find ourselves, like Peter, in familiar waters feeling the weariness of empty nets. In those moments when our own efforts seem to yield little, we are invited to listen for the gentle voice that calls us to try again, to cast our nets in deeper waters,